welcome back to part 2 with Annawyn.
Thank you.
Currently, we are in the Vivia Locke Theater on the OSU campus. So we're looking forward to learning all about this step of your life and career. So I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much. In the interim, I was thinking about a theater experience that I'd had when I was quite young. And as a lot of children do, they put on shows, and we didn't have a barn to do in it. We had our backyard. So my brother and a friend in the neighborhood, Marjorie Sanderson, and I put together this, what we thought was a wonderful show, and it was a cowboy and Indians thing. I don't know how we could be inspired by that, but nevertheless, we were. I'm saying that tongue in cheek. But we went around the neighborhood and we sold tickets, and they were 10 cents a piece. And so we put this on, and we were quite active. I think it lasted maybe 5 minutes, this show. I mean, it could have been 4, but it was a battle, so it was over. And when it was over, my mother, who was an audience member, made us give the money back because she thought it was inadequate. It was too much to pay for that show that we put on. So that was my first play that I participated. Well, I participated in some other things, but that I had helped produce. So I guess in my mother's eyes, it was not that successful. And even though I've talked about how supportive she always was, I do want to share with you that the first musical I ever saw, really, was Oklahoma. And my parents were wonderful to expose me to these things. I just appreciated it over and over when I think of it, that there were, I was a young child when it came out, and we drove to Oklahoma City to see it. And we enjoyed it thoroughly. I loved it. I loved it so much. And I could, sing, I pick out a few notes from the songs that were in it. And, but anyway, we had seen the show, and we had a pear tree in our backyard. And it was a wonderful tree to climb. But my mother told me, excuse me, she said to me, "You cannot climb that. You are not to climb it," because I hadn't, they laid down the law for me. But I don't know if I forgot that or what. But nevertheless, I climbed it. And I had seen Oklahoma. But anyway, I climbed as far to the top as I could. And while up there, I was singing, "Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day." Right at the top of the tree. My mother came out, said, "Get down from that tree right now. You're never supposed to climb it." And she gave me a spanking. No applause.
No applause.
Just a spanking. But it was not a hard one at all. So where are we now, Tanya? Are we moving to OSU Theater?
Let's move into when you came to Oklahoma A&M.
Right.
Your major was
theater. It was speech, because there was no theater department as such. But there was, but it was not a discipline that was being offered that way. But it was speech, theater emphasis. So I was involved in theater. Was my major. I was from the freshman year. That was it. All my the major classes that I had, where there's some that you have to take, in arts and science school, and I took all of those. But the other courses were speech and theater.
And you came in 1950. Your freshman year was 1952.
Well, it was 1952, 53, and I had been, I have spoken about the things that we came to the college auditorium to see, the movies that we saw with my parents from the Allied series, summer series. And so I was familiar with the theater, and it was called the college auditorium. And I also was familiar just a little bit with the Prairie Playhouse, which was to the south of it. Both of those stages, we thought they were good. That was what was here, and we it was a stage. In my old age, I've often said, a theater, my kingdom for a theater, because you're lucky if you have a theater. There are places often, that you want, there are times that you want one because you have something that needs to be on the stage, and you don't maybe do it in a makeshift thing. So a theater is a wonderful thing. And so they seemed wonderful to us, even though they were out of date and they're old. But they, I'll just say this: I don't know if I'm proof of it, but old age gives you character. So I hope that that's true. So a lot of people have said I'm a character. So anyway, I'm sorry that I don't know whether my water is handy at some point, but I might have to take a drink in a minute. But
so where on the campus was the theater where you performed?
It was here.
It was on this same.
It was on this same spot.
It's not this building, but it was on here.
It was not this building. It was called the College Auditorium, and it was where we it was I don't know about if it was the largest auditorium on the campus, but this is where we had our student orientation. I came in as a freshman, and it was in the college auditorium, in the audience section, with the stage as where the speaker was orienting us. But we didn't look at anything like this is old, because this is an old building, or and it was so Old Central was right in front of it, as it is the Saracen Center, isn't that so? Mm-hmm. If you went directly west, you'd run into it maybe. But we were very familiar with the campus, and it's a wonderful thing to be on a college campus, and especially to be on the campus at Oklahoma State, because it's just a wonderful feeling to be on it. And we at the college auditorium, the freshmen who came in, I don't know that they still do this, but I know there has to be a drama organization, has to be for the theater students. And when I was in school here, it was called the College Theater Guild. And we would, it wasn't hazing that we went through, but we had to perform something on the steps of the auditorium building. And I performed a reading that I had done when I was a senior in high school, and it was the scene from it's the clown scene, or the rustic scene from Midsummer Night's Dream. And anyway, that's what I did, and other people did other things, but we had to do it. The seniors, the sophomores, the seniors were our audience. We did attract attention. We were out there, emoting, and it was all in fun anyway. But I don't know. I'm wondering, if I feel sure, as I said, that there is such an organization, but I have no idea what they do now. But the two stages, I was talking to my daughter-in-law about the Prairie Playhouse and the connection. It's the surrounding rooms adjacent to the theater in itself. It was a smaller stage. A lot of work was done on that stage as well. My brother, Burris DeBenning, who became an actor recognized in television work and some movies as well. He did it was the summer production of The Crucible he was in, and it was done in that theater, and many others at the Prairie Playhouse as well. And classes took place in there. The directing class, of course, was in there, not in the college auditorium space. And there were rooms adjacent where makeup was applied and other things. Classes took place. My world history of the theater class took place in Williams Hall, in a room adjacent to the Prairie Playhouse, which was attached to Williams Hall. And that I think it's the roar of the grease paint and the smell of the crowd. You had that was the name of, I think, of music. I know it is, but we when you would walk in this one room, it was just a little bit back of where the stage was. It smelled so like a theater. I mean, it was so wonderful. The makeup smell, which is a good smell, it was one that you enjoy. At least I enjoyed inhaling it, and but it had become part of the walls in there, so you couldn't walk in there without being hit. This is a theater room, and I'm sad that that space is gone because it was really a charming space. But I'm sure others have replaced it that are, more modern and more serviceable to, for students today. Because some things have to come down for other things to be built, unfortunately. So I was I was a double major in English, but you had to take freshman English, and so I was enrolled in that, as well as many other things. But that was the freshman English course was a general course, but the theater classes that I took were specific to my major, and the staff at the time included two people that were instrumental in shaping me in the theater world and guiding me. One of them was Miss Locke and Vivia Locke, and the other one was Olive Hillis, who was on the staff as well. And we were just recently, Annette and I, looking up the background of Miss Locke and the things that I remember about her, apart from her theater work. First of all, she was Native American. She was a Choctaw, and she was proud of it. And her father, as it turns out, was a principal chief of the Choctaws. And her family, her brother, I don't know his name, or if I did, I don't remember it, but he operated somehow in the New York world in opera. And she attended Oklahoma University and then attended USC. And there she was under the tutelage of the brother of Cecil B. DeMille, William DeMille. It was William DeMille who was one of her teachers. And she talked about him a lot. And she referred to him as Mr. DeMille said this, or Mr. DeMille did that. And she had a great deal of respect for him. And it was obvious to me and to others that he had a great deal of respect for her. She was someone I am sure that he realized, was a blazing talent, theater talent. And I never saw, I think I did see her I think she was in Come Back Little Sheba, the Town and Gown. We haven't talked about that institution, the Town and Gown, but it is, the local community theater company. And it first operated on the campus and did its performances in the student union. And I was in two places there when I was actually three plays that I was in that were performed in the student union, in the ballroom, in the round. And it was a wonderful group of people. There were still are people, of course, but there were a lot the college people who, not necessarily in theater, who wanted to participate in theater. There were a lot of them that did. And my association with the facility that is south of town now, which is the Town and Gown building. Have you been, you know where it is?
I know it is.
And I directed a show in there when I was back here in the late 60s working on my master's degree. And I directed a play by Peter Schaffer called The Private Ear and the Public Eye. It was a set of two one acts by Peter Schaffer, who is remembered for one of the shows is Royal Hunt of the Sun. And there's an OSU graduate, I'm not sure about the graduate part, but an OSU student who was in it that I directed in the private ear, and his name is Gary Busey, and I knew him. I met him first at Oklahoma A&M. It was Oklahoma State when I met him, because it changed shortly after my graduation. And I and all others who graduated at that same time, I have 2 degrees. I have one from Oklahoma A&M, and then I was sent a degree from Oklahoma State University. And I just think that's wonderful to have those 2 degrees. And Gary was he was a very, very fine actor. I won't rhapsodize about him now. Perhaps I'll talk about him a little bit later. I haven't seen him in years, so I haven't had that opportunity. But Miss Locke, Andrew Kimbrough asked me, did I remember the 3 ladies? And is that a term that you've heard about, the 3 ladies? Well, I was thinking, I said, well, of whom were you speaking? And he was referencing Vivia Locke, Marty Sharp, and Billy Sue Harmon. They were all 3 women that were on the staff. They were good friends. Miss Locke, of course, Miss Locke's Native American name was Buntanima, and her friends shortened that to Bunny. And many of the students, Oklahoma State students, or Oklahoma A&M students, had grown into the position of using her name, Bunny. I never could. I could not call her anything but Miss Locke. And I think I was as close to her as most people, were. But Miss Locke, and if you want to ask me anything about her and direct me, anything that you might want to know, if I could tell you about her, I would. But she was the one that hired these 2 people, and they were in age. They were Miss Locke in age, and then there was Marty, and then there was Billy Sue. Billy Sue was also she was a year ahead of me in school, so she was, close to my age. And she was an outstanding drama student. So, and then she was hired by the faculty, by Miss Locke, and became, part of the faculty. And I too was part of the faculty. In 1965-66, I was on the theater faculty. I taught but I was working on my master's degree here, so I was teaching a couple of classes then, and it was really, and Miss Locke is the one that hired me. And was talking to Annette about her. I said that she had been in the Army or service during World War II, and I thought it was the Army, and Annette then researched it and found, yes, she was 3 years she was a WAC. And but she was a theater major, all in, going to Oklahoma University and then to USC. So I am wondering, she was so beautiful. Just to look at her, it was kind of, sometimes people, they look in ways that it's almost breathtaking, but she had just I was like anybody else, almost everybody who was fortunate enough to be in a theater circle with Miss Locke, was always thrilled to be in just with her and the way that she worked. And one of her gestures was, I'm sitting here holding this bottle of wine. I'm going to stop and take a drink of it. That's what I'm going to do right now. So just a minute. Please excuse me.
I had read that she came, her first year here may have been 1951, so she was pretty new to campus at the same time you were here.
She was. The first time that I saw her, I was in high school. I mean, I put this all together, you know, thinking about it. She was at Tahlequah at the university there in Tahlequah, and I was competing in speech contest, and she was there as a judge from Oklahoma A&M. I remember just being, when I saw her, I don't want to look gaga. No, but she was quite beautiful, and she had on a yellow dress, and she had on a yellow picture hat that she was wearing, and it registered on me how lovely she looked. And then somebody said, that she was from Oklahoma A&M, and I was not. I didn't know about her, but I saw her, during the period that you're talking about, and she came here, and one of the things I think I said this earlier, that my Native American tribe is Chickasaw, and she was Choctaw, and the two tribes were very close, and so she was really tickled that she could tell me that. I did not know that about the tribes. I've since learned a great deal, but she's received as a Native American, and that read to me the number of awards that she received that were Native American awards to her. So she was active and known within the Native American community. But that's, of course, removed from her professorship and as the head of the department in the way that she interacted with us, because that wasn't something that she, dwelt on, and maybe it might have been too personal, I don't know, that she felt that way. But nevertheless, she could explain things in such a way that you knew exactly what she was talking about. I was going to say, the statue of her that is out in the lobby here. I haven't seen it today. I haven't gone out. I'm assuming it's still there. But I remember that I believe she was sitting, I think, like this, and that's an iconic gesture of hers, and also this, as she's talking. And she had her background in theater was, of course, extensive, to be doing what she was doing and to be here at the university and at this high position, faculty position, and eventually being the head of the theater department, which she was not, when I came to school, but she became that.
In a short amount of time.
Yes. And but the other person, Olive Hillis, was someone that coached me when I was in high school in my dramatic, and my comedy reading, state reading that I entered in competition in speech contest. And so they both mattered in my life. And I don't know how long Olive Hillis, there is a scholarship in her name here in the theater department. And I know because I had something to do with that being established. But Vivia Locke, of course, has one, and it was, everybody in the world contributed to it because everybody wanted to, and to make it happen. And when the Saratine Center opened, Bud Saratine came back for that, and he was with his wife. Then he also brought a celebrity with him, and it was let's see if I spoke like him. I can't think of his name, and his name, Jim was his name, his first name, and he played a Gomer Pyle.
Oh, neighbor.
Jim Neighbors. He was a friend of the Saratines, and so he was here, with them in the room. I mean, Bud Saratine brought his entourage, his wife, and Jim Neighbors.
Did he sing? Because he was really.
Oh,
really
I know he did. I know he had a voice, and it was startling, because you think of him as yip, and well, thank you, thank you, thank you. And that was the way he talked. But he wasn't talking that way here. And I don't think he did sing for us, but all of us knew, that he could and did. Miss Locke was, I don't want to repeat myself, and this is something I may have already said. I've said it several times while I've been here visiting in the town. She was the most charismatic woman I've ever met in my life. You could not be around her. I don't want to go on and sound, a little bit loony about it, but that's the truth. She was. And one of the things that she said, and this was not connected particularly with theater, she said she felt that when people were young, they were given a face that looked pretty good, but the face that you had when you got older was the one you deserved. So I think a lot about that now that I'm 89. This is the face I deserve. Whatever that means is, not going to focus on that. I probably shouldn't have even brought it up. But nevertheless, she was very wise, not only in theater, but just she was a woman of stature that, she just, that kind of person is empowering to you. Excuse me, I guess I'm okay. I had the opportunity when I was, and because I was from Stillwater and came back, to visit family when I left, I always went by to see her. Now you think of something, if you want to ask me, just do it about her.
Okay.
I want you to if you can think of something.
Would you visit her on campus or in her home?
I visited her in her home, and while I was just yesterday, and we were driving around, which is always a pleasure to me to drive around Stillwater. I don't come back here and think, oh, this is so sad, it's changed so much, I just don't recognize it. I had a friend who came back and he said, it's not the Stillwater I knew. But I came back enough that I'm aware, excuse me, I'm aware of the growth. And so I've been able to see it, so it's not startling to me. He said, you used to be able to come to the campus and look west, and you used to be able to see the horizon. But he says now the buildings that are there are so tall, and they block that. And but I'm not saying that that's all right with me, but it doesn't upset me to think in those terms. And but there are other people that I've talked with, even Stillwater High School graduates who, once they came to Oklahoma A&M, the ones that I knew of my peer group, and they, after the college experience was over, after the education and whatever they did, they, even as Stillwater people and still living here, they didn't continue on in the way that I did. One of the things, I'll just bring this up because I think of it and I probably want to do it again. I saw some really strong performances here, professional performances that were brought to Oklahoma State in the basketball, on the basketball court, and is it still called IBA? Mm-hmm. And the production company of the road company, or whatever, how it was defined, the Kane Mutiny Court Martial came here, and Henry Fonda was in it, and I think it was Lloyd Nolan that came back and played Captain Queeg in it, and Fred McMurray was in. I mean, the whole gamut of stars came back and were there, and the platform was put in front of the south audience. So, I mean, people could sit behind if they, wanted to, but I mean, that was one of the things that was brought here. There were so many wonderful things that were brought here. Hal Holbrook came here after I graduated and performed. I don't think he performed in this auditorium. It wasn't built yet, but he was, as wonderful as he was. I went backstage to him. I've kind of deviated a little bit away from Miss Locke, but I have been talking about, earlier in the day, about the wonderful things that came from the university that I was able to, and all of Stillwater could avail themselves of. It was sophisticated, and not that that's a wonderful thing, but these were high level cultural things, and we were like the Monte Carlo Ballet came here and performed. And I want to say here because we're here in an auditorium, I was trying to think of the other one that did. Oh, it was a Bernard Shaw thing, but there were three actually in it. All the names, the actors who were stars when I was young. A lot of people don't know who they are. I think people probably know. I'm trying to think of her last name. Her last name was Agnes. Her first name was Agnes, but she's a very well-known actress and has been in many, many movies. The Tyrone Power, he was a matinee idol, and he was in it. And there was a third person, and I don't want to say the name because I'm not sure who it is, and I don't want to be inaccurate about it. It's a powerful show, and it was done in the college auditorium, and that before the Saracen Center was built. But back to Miss Locke, there are many teachers. This was a wonderful thing about being to be at this university and to live here as well. It increased your association with your professors. I mentioned that I had directed this show that Gary was in, Gary Busey, but the one that followed it, the private eye, the public eye. It's supposed to, that's a play on words because I won't even, because you think of it, a private eye, but this was the public eye. It was about a bumping detective. But one of the people who participated in it was a professor that taught me 303 psychology. And I cast him and worked with him. That's the kind of experience that one can have here in Stillwater. You not only would be a class, but if you live here, you can see these people. Well, Miss Locke was always accessible. I don't know of a time that anybody wanted to see her that you couldn't. She had a wonderful sense of humor. I'm going on and on about her, but everybody felt that way about her. And time gives you time to either, distance from someone gives you time to recognize, well, maybe there would have been a flaw or two, but I don't have any about her.
What classes did she teach? What was her specialty area?
She I think that the directing class for me was the major class that she taught that affected me. I remember I was in a show that I'm trying to think what the name of it was. A one-act play, and it was one that a student was directing, and I was in this, and she was, it was done for her to see, for her to critique as part of a class. And so I played a slovenly, young woman in it. And I can't remember the other people in the cast, but anyway, I was supposed to be, one of the lines that was directed to me, that my brother in the thing said, "My God, you're getting common." And so that was the character I was supposed to be. And she, after it was over, and she talked to me, just, she was giving me directions about it. And so that we had a chance to try to incorporate the changes, later, after the critique, and see if we could. But she told me, she said, Annawyn, you're doing a sweet, young, pure person up there, and that is not this character. And she said she's tough, she's sassy, she's talking back to people. And so I see, if somebody can say specific things to me, I will try my best to follow it. If it's something that I realize it's important to do. As a performer myself, I may have an opinion about whether I want to take that advice or not, but I would always listen to her. And so I did. And so I played I played a tramp. And I think this is kind of daring, or, because not so daring, I guess. But anyway, my costume was a slip, so I had to perform in a slip, a full slip. But that's an example of, she knew how to approach people. And that was one of the things that in directing, that as a director, because I evolved from an actress to becoming a director, and myself appreciating that more than the performance, although I love performing as well. But, and it's because of her. My brother, Burris, became a professional actor. And the thing that my son-in-law discovered about him on TCM, saying, that you may not recognize the face. Oh, no, you may not recognize his name, which was Burr, B-U-R-R, DeBenning. I did talk about this a little bit. I hope I'm not saying the same thing I did this morning. But anyway, he said he'd been in over 90, television, and you may not recognize the name, but you'll recognize his face, my brother. And he was one of her students. He was 2 years behind me, and he was a business major, and then he changed to theater. We both grew up in a house that he did things, a lot of theater stuff in high school, as I did. Whatever was offered, we were participating in. And he loved it. And but she didn't tell me. She told me different things. There's something in me that isn't tough enough to do the things that my brother did. And so she talked to me a lot about it. And I knew she was right. And so I was directed to my theater, bailiwick or venue, was community theater, and it's because I was directed that way by her, because she knew that it's a very tough business, and she also knew that I could get my feelings hurt easily, and a lot of people can as well. And although, when you're in theater, you have dreams of, that you'll do this and you'll that, and you'll be admired and loved and get an Academy Award, and etc. She didn't talk to my brother that way. I mean, it was not that she differentiated talent, but she was psychologically intuitive. And so she did not say, you need to take care of yourself, your spirit, your soul. And as basically, I think that's what she was saying to me. Well, he and I were very much alike. But if I had gone into that stage that he went into, I always was so impressed that he had that he was able to take, which all actors do. They take criticism. You know, they're constantly being criticized, and they're overlooked. Somebody else chooses somebody else over them, and it's a and then if you're really lucky, because I do think a great deal of it is luck. Because I think there are many talented people, of course, in the world, and there were many talented people here that and one of them was Gary Busey, who went on, after he had classes under her. But my brother he was able to take that and go through it. There was another student of Miss Locke's that was a Stillwater girl. Stillwater people, it's kind of it's not a closed circle, but we are together because we are from the same hometown. We went to school together. Anyway, her name is Patty Graham, or Patricia Graham, and she was not. Her career turned into, she became a producer. She was an actress who performed in high school and in college, as I did, from Stillwater. But she became a producer. She was a producer for the Dinah Shore show. These are people that I knew. There were other people that I didn't know. She was, and then she also. Do you by any chance remember Flip Wilson? She produced his television show. So Miss Locke she prepared you. It's not that she stereotyped you or anything like that, but she guided you, and never in an ugly way, never as a director said, can't you do this right? I have a very good friend who's no longer living. Her name is Joanne Muchmore. She came from Stevens, and she became one of Miss Locke's students as well. She came here her junior year, and she told me at Stevens that she had a director that would shout out to her from the back of the auditorium, "I don't believe you." I just, and I wouldn't have been able to produce anything that way. In fact, I've had people do that to me, and I've had that, not that specific thing, but I don't respond. I mean, I can't. It does not help me. It ruins me or affects me in a negative way. So Miss Locke is, she was kind, and she never said anything to me and to anybody that I know of. I think everybody, thought so highly of her. I don't know how to, I mean, they're wonderful, there are other wonderful people who were here in the speech department, and some of them didn't stay here. One of them was Paul Heinrich. Another one was Miss Dr. Coach or Miss Professor Coach, and I had them in my speech classes, and for oral interpretation, and they were not in theater, but they were wonderful teachers, and I can't think of anybody that I had that wasn't good. I just to realize the quality and you. It's not that I'm setting myself up as a judge. I was a student, and so that I look at them as a student listening, and how the relationship, teacher to student, manifests itself in my life. And there are many people that were good to me and brought me along and wanted to be supportive to me. And
Does the name John Woodward? Yeah,
yes.
I don't know much more than that. I just seen his name when I was looking around.
Well, I'll tell. He was the one that told me in the earlier thing about the Cape Cod house was
Oh, okay.
not appropriate here on the plains of Oklahoma. But he was a good friend of mine. I mean, he was.
I think he did Town and Gown. Had something to do with Town and Gown.
Yes,
he
was very active in Town and Gown. The Town and Gown attracted it. It was appropriate to be Town and Gown because it was not only the townspeople theater, and there were many of them who were not associated with the university, who had God-given talents that needed to be expressed and used that way. And
well, they got started about the time you were here on campus, right? In the early
it
50s?
wasn't very old when it wasn't. And I was in the 3 shows I was in. There was one. Oh, Miss Locke was directing this. She directed Antigone. And
I remember Mama.
I remember Mama.
Romeo and Juliet.
Though Miss Locke didn't direct, I remember Mama, but she did direct. And no, she did. But those are plays I were in. But those were with the university. When with A&M.
And The Traitor.
I was in The Traitor.
And then Ring Around the Moon.
Yes. That Miss Locke directed that, and she also directed The Traitor. There was a student from Brooklyn, and I'm going to say his name. I don't think he would mind if I said his name. Is Neil Gabay. I've tried every time I've gone to New York City, because that's where he was. He was from the New York area. I wanted to locate him. I went because we were friends. We were good friends, and he was I think it was The Traitor that he had the lead, but he wasn't, a leading, Prince type lead. He was a unique, guy, and I am positive that she chose that for him, because to use him and to use what he had to give, because he needed to be on stage. He was here for that. He was here. He was in my freshman class, and he was a very, very intelligent guy. We were politically aligned, which was nice. I mean, a comfort sometimes.
Were auditions challenging or competitive?
They were competitive. They were always. Because, I would look around anytime I auditioned, and I could find a reason why all the people I could find a reason why anybody was competing with me, why they would get it over me. I just saw it that way. I didn't expect something. I auditioned for it because I wanted to do it, and I felt I could. But if somebody else was chosen, and that happened to me with, I think that Ollie Tillis directed I Remember Mama. I don't think Miss Locke did, but I'm pretty sure it was Ollie. But the leading role of the girl who remembers her mother, who's the narrative of the story, that I wanted that role, and I auditioned for it, and I wasn't chosen. I played Christine in I Remember Mama, the child next to Catherine. I think her name is Catherine. It is perhaps I'm wrong, but the lead, the narrator, and I had so whether it was Miss Locke or Olive Ellis, whoever it was, I hedging a little bit on it. I'm sorry, my memory is failing me on this one, but it was explained to me, and the director of that show said to me, Annawyn, she said, sometimes somebody comes in and auditions, and they're so right for the role, and I thought, she's right. And I heard, Betty Taylor is the one that auditioned. She was a friend of mine in high school. Patty Graham, Betty Taylor, the three of us were the three ladies from Stillwater High School that we were all together and competing and stuff. But Miss, I mean, I do, when I would come back, and a lot of people do this with Miss Locke. If you have greater expectations from where your life is right at that moment, I mean, and there were times when that was true of me. I would come back and I'd talk to her and say this and that and whatever, and then she said, Annawyn, she said, this is life. This is the way life is. I mean, and to be able to open yourself up to someone of her stature, and that she had sometimes as a senior citizen myself and people that I deal with, I find it very difficult to say hard things to people and hope that it doesn't sound too bad. Miss Locke could say hard things to people and make it sound good. I mean, you didn't go away crushed from it. She was able to communicate with you that way. So I am very happy that I was one of her pupils.
Would she demonstrate for you?
She would.
As part of her class?
Yes, she would. There was somebody who moved from Oklahoma A&M over to OU, and my mother and I, when my mother took me to one of the competitions, we happened to meet him, and he identified himself to me, and I was a senior in high school. And he started talking. He had moved over from here to OU, and he started talking to me about Miss Locke. And he was talking about her playing. He thought that she would be wonderful in our town, playing Emily, and that he could envision this particular light on her. And I just really. That's wonderful, but I was a senior in high school. But she made that impact on people, and they'd seen her. She did more work on stage here. I think she played in Come Back Little Sheba. Are you familiar with that? Shirley Booth, the actress, played that in New York in the movie that was made. I'm trying to think. I think Shirley Booth played it in the movie, and Burt Lancaster played the husband. And it's about it's about a young woman who comes in and lives in the house of these people. It's kind of rooming there, and that the husband doesn't actually have any kind of love relationship with her, but he finds her very attractive, and this and that. And so the main character is aging, and she's, feeling that I'm not pretty anymore, this and that. And so this was a role that was done here and that Miss Locke played. And so the name of the show is Come Back Little Sheba. And the character in the play had a dog named Sheba. And so, but the dog had been lost. But she would, keep calling her dog to come back. Sheba, and it represented, some people have said, her youth, that she was wanting back. So it was a play that was, it was a part that was nuanced, and if anybody could nuance it, it could be Vivia Locke. But see, she was a powerful presence. Physically, she was small. She wasn't big. I'm not talking, size. But she was, I think I don't want to sound, I probably have, shouldn't just keep, I sound like, maybe foolish about her, but
she had a lasting impact on you. So.
Well, she did, and she did on all of her students. I don't know of one that was not affected in a good way by her.
And she was here like 30 years maybe. So she didn't choose to go on to something bigger.
No, she didn't. She this was her home. She was an Oklahoman. Her family, was Native American, and her father was, a chief in the Choctaw tribe. But she had a relative who started a Native American play competition, and they were from Muskogee, and I used to know their names, but it was a cousin of hers that they were very close. And Miss Locke would be one of the judges of the when scripts were submitted in competition for this award. She would be one of the ones to read it, to make a decision about it. And also she did produce some here. The winner. I would like to double check that and really make sure that that's accurate, but that is in my memory that she did that. And my daughter, I mentioned earlier, my playwright daughter, she won that competition, but it was after Miss Locke was gone. She wasn't living any longer when my daughter won it. And that would have been nice, if I could have shared that with her. But when you think about people in your life, they're people that you just wish that you could have told that, to, and let them respond to you, and just share something like that.
But did you have her when you were when you came back for your master's? Were you still taking classes with her?
Yes, I was. What were you going to say? Just did I catch up too soon? One of the classes her directing class was the most one that impacted me the most. But she also taught all kinds of courses, theater courses. But she taught the World Theater class. And that was a wonderful class. And I mentioned my friend Joanne Muchmore, who had come from Stevens and came into the OSU system, Oklahoma A&M, still Oklahoma A&M at that time. And I thought back up on it because my friend was a blazing talent, and she was very impressed with Miss Locke. She, come from a school that one of the big departments in it was theater. One of the people, I don't know that you recognize the name Maud Adams, but she was an old actress. I don't mean old in age. She lived old in that way. But she was on the staff. It was a highly respectable school. And I had a friend when I was in active in the Toledo Repertory Theater when I was 26 years old, that she went to that same school that Joanne did. She knew her. I don't know, does the name Tammy Grimes, does that sound familiar to you? Well, she was one of the students there. And but Joanne had won an award my friend, who was so talented, but she didn't end up going. She won a scholarship to go to Yale Drama School in the summer, and but she decided to get married instead, and had to give that up. And she gave it up to somebody who really had she had a career in the theater. Not people aren't familiar with her necessarily. And it was Carrie Nye, but Joanne would have been in that position, and I have no doubt that she would have become a Broadway performer. I firmly believe it. She had I don't know. She wasn't like Tallulah Bankhead but Tallulah Bankhead was she was a grand theater woman, and Joanne wasn't in a way as well. She was in that kind of category, but she loved Miss Locke too, and Joanne ended up living a number of years in Ponca City, and so she was able to be here. Joanne got her master's degree. She was the first woman, I think, to get her master's degree in theater from here. I'd have to check it out. She was taken last fall, into the distinguished in the Arts and Sciences School. She was taken into a distinguished alum posthumously. But I'm just telling you that she came from a school, had a highly reputable theater reputation, and that she was impressed with it. But I'm calling her Vivia. I never called her that in my life.
For a long time, I thought it was Vivian, but there's no N. There's no N.
But it'd be interesting to know a little bit. I wish that I had known more about her family. Her brother, some way, he was an older brother. He had some connection with opera in New York City, and I don't know quite what it was. I don't think that he was a performer. But there are lots of things that she inherited from him, lovely things. I can't cite specifically what they were that she, that became into her care after his death. And so her home, even though her home was not a grand home, it wasn't a large home on a big scale, and it was, when I first knew her, she had an apartment that was closer to the campus. It was over on 4th Street, and it was at the corner of 4th, and it could have been, Annette, do you know, what's the street that's, Jefferson. It could have been closer to Jefferson. You're the one that mentioned Jefferson. It could have been on Jefferson and 4th. I don't know, but it was a really nice apartment. And while I was at school there, I was in school here. That's where she lived.
She wasn't married.
She was not married. She was married once. I never knew anything about that. If there were, and I wouldn't have felt comfortable in inquiring. And at least I'm pretty sure she was once, but there was somebody after that she was seeing while I was in school that seemed pretty serious. All of us were aware of it, but it turned out that she discovered something that she didn't like, and it was not good for her to know, and she was able to just walk away from it, and the relationship ended. I don't know anything, but she was. I wondered about somebody. I was telling my son and Annette too. I think, I'm not sure, but she was associated with some form or another of our gang comedies years ago, and I did ask her about that, and she, excuse me, sorry. She did talk a little bit about it, but I've forgotten what she said. I think that she was probably a beautiful baby and a beautiful little girl, and that probably somebody in her family, probably her mother, thought that she was a candidate, and she was taken to Hollywood and actually was some way connected briefly with it. So,
Did she sing?
no, not that I know of.
Well, you sang also, but you chose to go I guess musicals, the acting too, though.
I do sing, and I can keep carry a tune in my. I think that it's okay, but it's not a show voice at all.
Okay.
And it's hard to. Well, I do listen to. Doesn't have to do with history of anything, but just how I listen to music, and I find many voices sound alike. But my younger daughter tells me she thinks maybe I'm hearing that just because my hearing isn't as good as it used to be. But in being here on this campus, it was a home to me, and as I mentioned earlier, I was comfortable walking around on the campus. You didn't have to worry about anything then. One of the things that I did that was not connected with the theater I was in, I was secretary, they don't have this anymore. It was called Religious Emphasis Week. Have you ever heard anything about that? I don't know when they stopped it, but it was stopped because of political correctness, some way connected with it. But it was. But when I was in school, it was a huge event where very great speakers were brought in for that. But it could have been, separation of church and school that caused that to actually be finished off, and it was probably right that it would be something that a lot of people could attack for that reason, although it didn't have one thing that it was saying. But I remember many speakers that were good, but I've kind of moved a little. I'm moving to the English department, and there's a scholarship in the English department in my mother's name, Annawyn DeBenning, and that was a double major for me when I graduated, and that's what my mother received her master's degree in English from here, from Oklahoma A&M, and I had many people in the English department that I appreciated very much, just as I did, the professors from in the theater department.
Were you planning to go into like high school teaching, or just have that as a?
I still plan to use it. I actually was, when I started working on my master's degree, since there was no theater master's degree at that time, I started on my English master's.
Okay.
And then I could use a few of those courses when I got my theater degree, speech theater emphasis master's. And I think that Miss Locke, and I can't name them. Oh, I was going to tell you this one story connected about her. When I directed some shows in Tulsa with the Tulsa Little Theater as a guest director, and one of the shows that I directed was 1,000 Clowns, and there was an OSU, I will not repeat his name, but there was an OSU graduate in it that I cast in it, and this individual was talking about kind of occult stuff to me a little bit, and it disturbed me a little bit, and so I talked to Miss Locke about it, and she said, and this is what you say. This person, she knew who it was. She said, you say you can invite that in, and you can tell it to get out. And so that's what I did. I went back and used those very words, and that discussion. The discussion of that ceased, within the cast, and it wasn't that other people were, hearing it so much, but that it worried me about this person. I was concerned a little bit, and I think, just to be able for Miss Locke to just say that like that. I mentioned that she directed Antigone, and there is a role in it, and I'm trying to think, Ismene, I think is her name. It's a sister of Antigone, and she knew she was going to cast Pat Graham as Antigone, and she wanted me to play Ismene, Ismene, I think is the way it was spelled. And at that time, Town and Gown was doing The Glass Menagerie, and I had the opportunity to play Laura in that. And I talked to her, and I said, I'd love to be in this and do the role that you want me to do, but I also, have this role that I can do as well. And it was a little bigger role. And she said, Annawyn, you rarely have the opportunity to be able to do a role like Laura in The Glass Menagerie. And I knew that she would have liked for me to be in her show. And I played Laura, but she released me gracefully in that I didn't have to feel guilty about it. I had her blessing. And that was the kind of person she was. I feel that I'm a spokesperson because I understand that I am an individual who is talking about her when no one has yet heretofore about Vivia Locke. And I don't want to be letting down the other people who knew her and admired her. I wish that I could confer with them and say, what have I left out about her that,
So even after you graduated, she was okay with you coming back and
absolutely
asking for advice or calling or something?
Absolutely. You could contact her anytime, and if she was, available, and she would make time for you. I was in her home many times, and it was just a spot that I think that everybody did that with her. And I think it had to have been gratifying to her that she had made her students feel that way about her. I know that when somebody contacts me from the past that I've worked with and, says nice things to me, and I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. You feel that your life, you're happy that you had a positive, impact, that somebody could feel that. And
when it was coming up toward graduation time, were there special conversations or things you had to do that she kind of, go this way or go that way? Or
well, she was always she was Mrs. Hillis was not saying to me specifically, you really don't want to do this, that. Miss Locke was, she wanted me, and Joanne did the same thing. Joanne much more became a director, a community theater director, and she was hired by Ponca City to be the managing director, and she was hired by, I'm trying to think of the town, it's not Waco, Temple, Texas, She was their artistic director for a number of years, and she was a terrific director there. And she was Oklahoma A&M trained. But when she got her master's degree from here, it was Oklahoma State. But so Miss Locke, she talked to me, about my temperament, and not in those words, but she felt it would be not healthy for me to be out, stomping around Hollywood or in New York, going from agent to agent or theater to theater, audition to audition. She discouraged me from that. But if I'd said, if I had said, listen, this is my heart's desire, and I understand what you're saying, but I will, I gently and politely say I'm going to go ahead with it. She would have said, wonderful, you go for it. But nevertheless, I would have been, it would have been very hard on me. And I'm married. And at that point, when you make a decision like that, and you then to have a family, as far as I'm concerned, my time was my theater, the community theater, which I was, I was used to it because I had, worked here with Tanya, and community theaters, they need strong, good people. They do, just as Broadway, directors of Broadway shows need to be. You're not gonna, little, Popeye isn't gonna pop up and say they're gonna hire him to direct a show there. And I don't know, there probably are people, maybe, I wouldn't be surprised, but I think maybe we would know about it by now, the people who might have been directed a Broadway show from Oklahoma A&M or Oklahoma State. I don't know. I haven't heard of them because I think it would be bragging rights for, Oklahoma A&M. But there were people from Miss Olive Hillis had retired, so she was not, pointing students in directions particularly as long as Miss Locke was. And Olive Hillis, she was, an Oklahoma A&M theater person, and she graduated from the American Academy of Dramatic Art in New York City. She was a very talented actress, and she was offered a role upon her graduation to be in the play Lilium, from which the musical Carousel is made. It's written by Frank Molnar. But she chose not to do that. She chose to come back here, and and be here. She wanted to, I guess, and maybe she fell in love, and that's what brought her back, because that often is. That's what happened to Joanne, my friend. You may be, hope I'm not confusing you, talking about people that, that interact with each other. But Joanne chose not to take the Yale scholarship because she wanted to get married, and that was what ended her career. But my husband there wasn't any way that I wasn't going to work in theater, because it's just something that I do, and I was, after all, I directed that show in the backyard and charged 10 cents for it, so I was on the way to a career.
And you were how old at that time? You'd already decided what your career path was going
Well,
to be.
I was certainly connected with performance.
Yeah.
One of the things that my mother wanted me to do, that she played the piano and I did readings with her. and there were two or three that she liked, and she would ask me to do it. She would, there would be a time when she would do that, so I would come in and recite the recitation with her accompanying it. And she really enjoyed that. And then finally, when I was in high school, I just told her, I said, Mother, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't. And I'm really, so when I look back on it, I think, how could I have done that? My mother enjoyed that so much. And just because I was tired of, selfish, all about me, Annawyn, didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't think, well, do it for your mother, because your mother enjoys it. Boy, there are things like that I would, some people say, there aren't things that I would change about my life. Well, I sure would change, some of that behavior. But if, thinking about my career from starting at the Seminole rail of the Methodist Church and moving through my life to the backyard doing the cowboy and Indians thing and having to return that. The other thing, the theater was a form of a way for me to express myself, and other people have other things in ways which they can. But one of the things, this was connected with my high school career. I was kind of I don't want to say a smart aleck, because surely I couldn't have been that, but perhaps mischievous, a little bit in classes. Not always, but anyway, my teachers, to a person, tolerated it. I mean, nobody ever said, you just better watch out. But there was one class I had, which was American history. Well, it was when I was in junior year. And the word was out about me, I could tell. And so I was placed in a chair right in front of her desk. and I was very much aware of that. And so there wasn't much I could do right there. I mean, I couldn't, and I wasn't disruptive of classes, really. I'm talking about it like I was running around the room, shouting and screaming. But anyway, I asked her if the reports that I gave, because we had to do the reports, if I could do them as a play. And she said I could. So my history reports, that, we each had to do it. And I, got members of the class to act it out with me. And 3 of my reports were done as skits. Well, the office girls would, because it was 5th hour, and they could get off a little bit. And so I attracted, my history reports attracted a crowd. It was small, like maybe 3 people, and the class, of course. But that was fun, to do that and to think. And she was a really good teacher, and that's the kind of support. I mean, that you hear people coaching teachers to be, to find what so-and-so likes and let them capitalize on it and use that within the discipline. And I I think very fondly of her, because she was a lot of fun too. I mean, she wasn't, she was a generous soul.
Well, they knew at that point what you were going to do then. So let's back up. You had mentioned you got married. Had you already graduated, or did you get married?
I got married before I graduated. I married in the fall of 1955, in November, actually. The 22nd is my wedding anniversary. And
how had you met him?
I met him in the radio station, the college radio station. But I had met him before. I realized, we talked back about it, I'd met him twice before, but he hadn't really made, or he hadn't tried to make an impression on me. In fact, when we've talked about it, he said that he thought I was a stuck-up person, and that shocked me, that because I'd never think of that connected with me. Of course, we don't know our faults and how we appear to others, but so that's the way it seemed to him. But because when I was in the sorority, we had to choose activities that we wanted to participate in, and he chose the same thing that I did from his fraternity, and so it was the campus radio station, and so we were up there at the same time, and we were in two different studios so that we were facing each other, and it was kind of like, the romance that goes dong, you see the light. But that was when I really met him, and he liked me a lot better the third time than he did the first and second. And all I did was just sit there in the studio opposite him. It was funny.
Would he come to see you in your performances?
Oh, yes, he would. He certainly would. And even though he suggested that I give theater up when we married, I knew that wasn't going to happen. I just never paid any attention to it. And he loved theater himself. He did. He loved musicals. And but anyway, he became, when we moved to Littleton, I was involved as a organizer of a new theater company, and he was president of Texaco Trading and Transportation at the time, and he supported me with that new theater company. As part of the, and I know they love this, as part of the people who worked for him, part of the things that he offered them, different opportunities, and one of them was to get to come and see one of the plays directed by his wife. Don't you know that went over well with maybe 5 people, and the rest of them saying, "Good grief, what do we have to sit through?" But I will say that I feel I was trained well here. I do. And I've always been proud of my education, and I've always felt like I could hold my own that way. Connected with just with my profession, because it was my vocation. It was not my avocation. So anyway, is it
getting married?
Are we running out of time? Are they running?
Well, they're going to start making noise. So
Are they?
I think that
Okay.
If you need a little bit longer, it's okay, but yes, you need to make noise at some point.
they need to make noise. So if you don't mind, if you want to keep
Well,
talking,
then
you can have noise in the background. But I think we're kind of quiet.
Do you think we need to close down the? Tanya, what time is it?
3:30.
Is it 3:30?
Did you have any final questions, Tanya? that
Today,
was kind of
before I go into my career after?
Well, I mean, any last words you would like people to know about Vivia? I guess it'd be, what else you would want them to know about her, since we're in her theater here.
What I've said it before about her, but she was an extraordinary human being. There are in one's life, there are people. You're very fortunate if you have somebody like her emerge in your life. Not everybody has that. You can look back and say, this was so and so. Was there, for me or whatever. But she is a stature that stands with the tallest, the best of theater in my books, and she inspired people to take the theater out and use, what we learned here at Oklahoma A&M. And if you're that kind of teacher, it's as I say, I will say the word again, inspiring. And you really do have a mission. And you don't really think of it that way, but it is inculcated in you. And so that's what she did. She had students, and she trained them and educated them and sent them, and they all, theater people, they love it. I mean, they love the theater. You may get beaten up by it and hurt and be kicked around, but you, if you get away from it, you want to get back to it. You can, do it very easily because it's just in you. And
if you could imagine her saying something to you today, what would it be? I don't know. Or what would you say to her besides thank you?
What I would hope that she would just say, I can't even say it.
I wish I can make it her motion that her statue says.
Well, I would hope that she would say, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Well, from what you have shared, I think she would say that big time.
I would hope so, because I don't, and she, I feel that she was proud of me. She wrote a really nice letter of recommendation for me. I was still married when I did this. There was an apprenticeship that opened up at the Alley Theater. Well, it was a program at the Alley Theater in Houston, Texas, a very famous theater. It used to be in an alleyway, hence its name, the Alley. And it had a very famous director there that people know, it was years ago. And her name is Nina Vance. But anyway, she would, Miss Locke, I had to let her have a recommendation to apply for this apprenticeship there. It was for the summer. And I was married, and my husband, he agreed that I wanted to do it because I didn't have any children, and I didn't know how I would have the opportunity ever again, something like that. So he said yes, it would be okay with him. Not that he needed to give it, but I wanted it, his to agreeing to it. And Miss Locke, she wrote a lovely letter recommendation for me, and I still have it. It's crumbling. I need to try to do something to protect it from it just falling completely apart. But I won't quote it, but it was a wonderful letter, and I got a feeling from it then, by the letter that she wrote, that she approved of me a little bit.
Her Annawyn.
Of Annawyn.
All right. Well, thank you very much for this segment. We'll pick it up tomorrow.
Oh
Okay.
boy.
Okay.
I don't know how you can